Welcome back. I hope that the last command line lecture was not all too bad for you, because in this lecture we're actually going to put it to use for the first time. So in this lecture we're going to install SASS on our local computer. Now there are several ways to do this, but I found that the easiest one is to just use an NPM package called Node SASS. So now you're probably wondering, what is NPM and what the hell is an NPM package, right? And that's great. So let me now introduce you to a whole new world of front-end web development, in case you haven't used it up until this point. And what I'm talking about is the huge Node.js and NPM package ecosystem, where you can find all kinds of open source tools and libraries and frameworks needed for modern web development. And one of these packages is a package to compile SASS, which we're about to use. So it all starts with Node.js, which is an open source JavaScript runtime that allows developers to write and run JavaScript applications on the server. Now, after some time, developers started using Node to also write tools, like for task automations, or again, to compile SASS, to help them with local web development. And that's what we're focusing on in this course, not the part about writing JavaScript on the server, of course. Now, in order to use and share these packages, we need some kind of tool to install and to manage them. And that's where the Node Package Manager, or NPM, comes in. So NPM is basically just a very simple command line program that allows us to do exactly that. Plus, NPM also allows us to do some automations of boring tasks, but more about that later. Let me just tell you that today, every serious front-end web developer in the world uses some kind of package manager like NPM, which is the most popular one since it comes directly with Node. So let me teach you the very fundamentals of NPM throughout this lecture, always with the goal of, in this case, installing SASS on a local computer. Alright, so the first step to actually get started with this is to install Node on your computer. So let's head over to nodejs.org and grab the installer. So this is nodejs.org, and from here you can grab the installer for Node.js. So you can just install version 6. It's more than enough for what we're going to do in this lecture. And if you're not finding the right installer for your platform, you can just go here to downloads, and I'm sure it will be somewhere here. Now I of course already have it installed, and so I'm not going to do that. And so you should probably just pause the video and wait until you have everything installed. Alright, so I hope your installation was successful, and so let's now open up the command line. So terminal on the Mac. And if you're Windows, remember, just open the command prompt by right-clicking on your Start button on Windows. Alright, and so the first thing we should do here is to test if you actually have Node installed successfully. And let me just increase the window here slightly so that you can see what's going on here on my screen. Alright, so in order to test if you have Node successfully installed, you just write the command node and then -v, which will check for your version basically. And so if you see anything here, no matter what version it is, it doesn't have to be the same as mine. As long as you see any output here, it means that Node is successfully installed on your computer. Now, if you're using Visual Studio Code like me, you can also use the integrated terminal here. So there's a terminal already built into Visual Studio Code, okay? And you can totally do that, but in order to make things more clear and more easier for you to understand, I'm not going to use this one, which I use usually, but I'm going to stick with the normal terminal here, okay? So that being said, let's now navigate to our project folder. And remember how we do that? First, let's check where we actually are with ls or dir on Windows. And then I just change directories with cd, remember? So desktop, and then from here I know that the folder is called 1naders. And so I just write 1 and then tab, return, and that's it. Let's check if everything's there. And yeah, index, img, and css. So just navigate to your own project folder so that we can start using NPM right now. Before installing our first package, usually the first thing that we always do in a new project is to create a package.json file, which basically will contain the definitions of our project and where NPM will write the packages that we use. Now in order to do that, we use the npm command. So since the program that we installed is called npm, we simply need to run npm on the command line. So npm And then what we want to do here is init. So npm init will open this program here. And so you see, this utility will walk you through creating a package.json file. And so this is basically just a simple helper which will create a package.json file for us. Okay? So again, this is usually the first step that we take when we start using npm on a new project. So we start with the name here. If we just hit return now, it will take this name here as a default, but let's just call it natures. The version is 1, that's absolutely okay. The description, let's just say landing page for natures. Okay? You could even leave it empty, it doesn't really matter. This also is not important. So we can leave all of this empty. Here you can put your name if you want, the license. And now it just asks if this is okay, and it looks absolutely okay to me, so okay. Alright, and so here is the package.json file. So we can just open it, and here we go. So it contains the name that we specified, the version, description, main, scripts, which we're going to take a look at later, author, and license. So nothing really exciting here for now, and so let's move on now. So what we really want to do is to now finally install our SASS compiler, right? So let's do that. And it's very simple again. So we use the npm program, then install, and now the name of the package. And the name is called Node SASS. So the name of the package that we want to install. And now we need to specify one last thing, and this will make it so that the package.json file is updated and lists this package as one of our developer dependencies. So what does that mean? It means basically that Node SASS is a tool that we use to develop our project. So what we do is to say save dev. Okay, and that's it. So hit return, and it should now download this package and install it. So it's normal that it takes some time. Alright, and here we go. So let's now take a look at the package.json file. And here you see, so this is now listed as a dev dependencies here, right? So Node SASS is the one that we just installed, and on version 4.5.3, and it's listed as a dev dependency. That's because we specified, as I was telling you, this, where do we have it now? This, here it is. So here, this save dev option, okay? So this is like an option that we specify. And we said save dev, and so it's now installed as a dev dependency, okay? Now there are all kinds of packages on NPM. For example, imagine that we wanted to use jQuery here on this project. We could just come here and write npm install jQuery. And now in this case, we're not going to put a save dev option in here because jQuery is not a tool for development, right? It's a JavaScript file that we want to include in the project. Well, not in this project, of course, but this is just to show you how we could install other npm packages. And if you just hit return, it will also install jQuery, and that's it. So let's now take a look. And now you see that it's nowhere to be found here in this file. Now, if we wanted it to be here, we could also say npm install jQuery. So just a trick that I didn't tell you, if you want to see the commands that you wrote before, you can just hit the up arrow on your keyboard, and it will show you all the commands that you wrote before, right? So right now, if I move up, then it will show me the last command that I run here, okay? So if I type now save instead of save dev, let me show you what happens then. It then creates here a field for dependencies, not dev dependencies, because dependencies are the ones that we actually need for a project. So in case of jQuery, in our project we want to use the functions that it offers us, while in Node SASS, it's just a helper, just a tool for us to be able to use SASS in a project. Now, maybe you've noticed that there's a new folder in our project right now, okay? It's this Node modules folder. Let's open it up, and wow, there's a lot of folders in here, and they're all because of the packages that we installed. So here we see the Node SASS package, and this is the code that actually makes it run. But this package here, it needs all of these other packages in order to work just fine. And that's why NPM installed all of these packages here as well, okay? But we shouldn't really worry about this. So just leave all of this in a Node modules folder, and there's no need to ever touch it, okay? Now maybe you're wondering, well, why do we need this package JSON file why do we have to worry about writing these dependencies here and these dev dependencies here as well? So imagine that you want to upload your code so that I can take a look at it if someone is not working right, okay? So if you have some kind of bug there, then you're not going to share this node modules package with me because it probably contains thousands of files. There's really no need to share these with me. So if you wanted to share your project, you will only share everything else, but not the node modules, okay? What you will share though is the package.json file, because from that one, I can then I can recreate this node modules folder, okay? So let's just imagine that we don't have it anymore. We can just delete it, in fact. So let's delete it. You should delete it as well. So this code is now gone. So if we wanted to use jQuery or Node SASS right now, we couldn't do it anymore because the packages are gone, the code is gone, okay? So imagine that we receive this project, and we want to reinstall these packages. So we can easily do that because the package.json file knows which dependencies, so which packages we use. So all we have to do is to say npm install. And it will now take a look at our packages.json file and download exactly the packages that we specified there. And so you see that now indeed the node modules folder is back. And in here we have all of these folders. And one of them is, of course, Node SASS. And also jQuery should be here. Yep, here exactly. So this one that we have here as well, right? Now in our project, we don't really need jQuery, right? So we can just uninstall it. So we say npm uninstall jQuery. And then we have to, again, specify the save flag, so the save option, so that it removes it also from the package.json file. And it's gone. So you see that it's no longer here. Well, this piece of code here, it stayed here, but it doesn't matter. It's not important. We can actually get rid of it right now. Okay, so our only dependency, so our only package that we need for our project is Node SASS. All right, and with that, we actually have everything we need in order to write and compile SASS in the next lecture. So let's just quickly recap what we did in this lecture. So we started by creating our package.json file. So I'll write clear here. So we started by writing npm init, right, in order to create the package.json file. Then we installed Node SASS by writing npm install Node SASS, and then we used save dev in order to save it as a development dependency here in our package.json file, which means that it's a development tool that will just help us building our project. Now, the reason we wanted to save this here in the package.json file is because this way we can share our project without sharing the entire node modules folder here, right? Which doesn't make any sense at all. And so if someone else receives our project, they can just do npm install just like this, and then all of the dependencies will be automatically installed. And the same, of course, applies to yourself. So imagine you are building this project on one computer and then you're continuing on the next one. You're also not going to take the node modules folder with you to the other computer. No, you just do npm install and that's it. So this package.json file is really useful, and each project where we have npm modules should really have one. Okay, and now with SASS installed on our computer, let's quickly move to the next lecture where we're actually going to use it to compile our very first SASS code. With SASS now finally installed on your computer, let's put a piece of SASS in our CSS code and then compile it in the command line. Now the first thing that I want to do here is to create a folder where we can put our SASS files. So I do it here in the command line because, as I was saying, I really like to use it. So mkdir make directory and then just SASS. All right, and now you see it's already here. Of course, we could have done it here in our code editor as well, just like here hitting new folder. But again, I like to use the terminal for this kind of stuff. Then we can move in there and create our very first SASS file. And we do it by using the touch command and edit on Windows. And if edit doesn't work for that, then you can, of course, just do it in your code editor. So touch, and let's call it main and scss. Okay, so remember there are two syntaxes of SASS. The first is called SASS and the second one is scss. And if we want to write scss, which stands for sassy CSS, we have to specify the file extension as being SCSS. Okay? So all of our SAS files will have this SCSS file extension. Okay? And so here it is. So this is our very first SAS file. So let's open it up. And here we go. So what we can do now, and what I will do, is to simply take all of this code from the style.css file and put it into our main file. So I select everything, cut it, and paste it here. And save it, of course. And that's it. So remember that with sassy CSS, so with SCSS, it's way easier to convert original CSS code to SAS, because valid CSS is also valid SCSS. And so that's what we just did. So this style CSS, we don't need it anymore, because now we're going to start writing our code here in this file, at least for now. So let's put some SAS here so that we can actually try it out. And the best thing to start, I think, is just to putting some variables here. So let's just start with the colors again. So I want a color that's primary. So our primary color, and it's actually this green color here. So this one is our primary color, our primary green color. And then the other ones, this one is just a lighter version and this one is just the darker version, okay? So color primary light is just this one here. And I'll call it primary dark is just this one. Okay, and so here we have some variables. Now I can actually get rid of this comment here. Okay, so we have our three variables here. Now let's use the ones that we actually used already, which are these ones. This one and this one, we use them here in this linear gradient. So what we can do here is to actually replace this. Now what I'm about to do, this only works in SAS. So in regular CSS, we cannot put a hexadecimal color here in the RGBA function and then some opacity, and then it will translate it to the color. It doesn't work like that. But here in SAS, it does actually work. So I can just put here color primary light. So color primary light. And down here, I can put color primary dark. And you see it's a lot cooler to write SAS here in the real code editor than it was on the code pen, because we have all this cool autocomplete going on here. Okay, so we have our variables and we have used them here in this place. And so let's now move on and actually compile this. And how do we do that? So remember we installed our Node SAS package, right? So how are we going to use it? We use it by writing an NPM script. And this is the place where we write our scripts. So right here in this package.json file, we not only have all of these definitions of the projects and our dependency, we also write scripts here. So we don't need this script here. This was just a predefined script that was here, okay? And so now we can write our own script. And I'm going to call it Compile SASS. And then in here, we can write our command. And how does this command work? Well, we start with node SAS, which is the name of the package. Then we have to specify our SAS file, which is the input file, and then we specify which is the output file, so the compiled CSS file. So this is like writing node SAS right here in the terminal, then the input file and the output file, like I was just saying. But unfortunately, that's not going to work. But what will work is to write the script here in this package.json file, and then in the terminal, we will call that script with this name here. But I'm going to show you how in a second, okay? Just so that you know why we're actually writing this script. Okay, so again, now we need the input file, so our SAS file, and so we need to specify where this file is actually located. And where is it? Well, from the package.json file, which is where we are, we need to go into the SAS file, right? And then select the main.scss file. So SAS main.scss. So this is our input file. And now the output file, we want it to be actually this one called style.css. So it is in the CSS folder and called style.css. And it will then simply override this file that we have here. But it doesn't matter because it's already empty anyway. And now with this code, we're ready to go and ready to try it out. Okay, are you ready? Let's do it. So back to the terminal, we now write npm run and then the name of our script. Compile SASS. So let's try it out now. Okay, so it says rendering is complete, saving CSS file, wrote CSS to users Jonas and then style.css. So let's take a look. And bam, here it is. So the variables are not here, the ones that we wrote here in the top, and you see that our header with the gradient now, it's back to these colors that we had before. So SASS replaced the variable names that we put in our code, so which are these ones, it actually replaced them with our variable definitions that we had in the beginning. So everything is working just fine, exactly as expected. So great, that's great news. It means that everything's working fine and that we're good to go and good to use SASS now on our local computer. Congratulations to reach this point. This is really great, really cool, okay? And if we now go check out our page, so we can close this one, if we check this out and reload it, then everything works the same, it looks the same, it looks exactly as it was looking as we were still using our CSS code. And that makes a lot of sense because, of course, as I told you in the beginning, the website, the web page, it never even knows that what we're actually writing is SASS code because it only ever knows of the CSS code. Because as you see, what we have here is still called style.css. And so this final output of our main SASS file is of course what the browser uses to render the web page. And so we would actually never again have to look at this file and don't worry about it ever again, okay? Now this is only one of the many possible scripts that we could write here. There are so many packages on NPM. There are packages to automatically prefix our code in order to support all of the web browsers. There are packages to compress our code and so much more. Now one last thing that I want to do here before leaving you is to just make one very small change to this. Because imagine that we now keep adding code here to our SASS file. And actually let's do that. So for example, we can set a color gray dark, for example. And let's put it to 777 because we actually already used this color here more than once. And so let's simply replace it with this variable. So color gray dark. And I know that somewhere down here it's repeated. There's actually another color. And yeah, so here it is. So color gray dark. If we wanted now to go check out the page to see if everything worked, then we would of course first have to come here to the terminal, then compile our SASS code, and only then we would be ready to check out our page, right? But that's not really practical. And so what we can do, which is something that this Node.sass package allows us to do, is to keep watching our main SASS file. So all we have to do is to add the W flag, so the watch option, because this W stands for watch. And if we now start this process again, it will keep watching for whatever we do in our code. So let's run this again. And remember, just hit the up arrow. So it's watching for changes. So it's only going to do something as soon as we change something in the file, okay? So let's just change something. Let's just put some space here, save it. Let's check it out. And here you go. So it detected a change, it compiled the code, and then wrote the CSS. So let's take a look now. And yeah, so the gray color that we had here is still the same. So if we did some other change here, let's say we want to add a color for white, color white. Okay, imagine at some point later we want to change the color white to a very light gray, for example, and then instead of going everywhere to change all these FFF codes, we would simply have to change it here, okay? So color white, and let me just copy it, because I've seen it multiple times down here. And let me see now. And so it's run into some errors, but that's not really a problem because here in the end it wrote our CSS just fine, okay? This is probably because I have autosave enabled in my browser, and so I think that each time I type something it triggers a compilation of the SAS code. And so sometimes the code is not correct and then it will give us this error. But we should be fine, so let's just check if everything that was white is still white, and it is. And of course we can confirm it in the code. So our gray color is still here and our white color is still here. And so everything is working the same, right? Okay, and so now we have this in place where each time that we write some more SAS code, it automatically compiles and we can then check out our page or result. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that you cannot close this window here, this process, because otherwise it will stop. So if you want to use the terminal now, you can actually open a new tab. At least that's how it works on a Mac, just hit Command-T. And so now you can write your commands in here because as long as this one here is working, you cannot write anything new here in this console, in this terminal window, and so you have to open a new one. Now on Windows, I think you can just use another command prompt by again right-clicking the Start button and then choosing Command Prompt from there. That should open you a new window where you can also write the next commands. And if you want this process to stop, the SAS process, if you want to stop it to compile, then you just close this tab here and then it's gone. Alright, and so with this we're well on our way to set up a very nice development environment here for us. Now only one thing is left and we're going to do that in the next lecture, which is to actually trigger an automatic reload each time that we change our page. So automatically reloading this page each time that we change something. So check out the next lecture to learn everything about that. So, we're almost done with this section and you've made amazing progress in this one. Congratulations! Now just to finish, let me show you an amazing NPM package that automatically reloads our complete project as soon as we change any file in the project folder. And it's really amazing and really easy to set up, you'll see. And the NPM package that I mean is simply called Live Server. So all we have to do is to type npm install live server. Now in the last lecture, or the lecture before that, when we first installed our first packages, we always installed them either by specifying the save dev or the save options, right? Remember that? So we used save dev on Node.sass to specify it as a development dependency, and we simply used save on jQuery to specify it as a normal dependency. And what that did was to basically install these packages locally in the Node modules folder, right? Oops, sorry. So remember this folder here, right? So we installed them locally in this project. Now what we want to do with this package is a little bit different though. So we want to install this one globally because we want to be able to use it not only in this particular project, but also on all future projects and anywhere on our computer. And in NPM, that is called a global installation, okay? So we want to install Live Server globally, not in this particular project, but basically we want to install it on our computer. And so instead of using save or save dev, we use G, which means global. Now all we have to do is to install it just like any other package. Alright, and now NPM actually ran into some error, but I'm sure it's because of some permission stuff. This usually doesn't occur on Windows, but here on the Mac it actually happens all the time. But the easy fix for that is to simply write sudo in front of our command. And then it will simply ask me for the password, and then everything should work just fine. So let's try it again now with sudo. Now if this didn't happen on your machine, then everything's fine, you don't have to do this. It's only if you also run into the same kind of error. npm install live server G. So as a global package. Now it asks for my password. And so here we go. Let's see if it works this time. And yeah, so now it works. Now you will see that it's not in the dependencies here, alright? You will also see that it's probably not in the Node modules file. So G, IL, and it's called live, and it's not here. Okay, so that's exactly what we expected, right? Because we installed this one as a global package. And since it's a global package, we can actually call it directly from the command line. Let me just clear this up. And I also have to go back to my project folder. You see right now I'm in the SASS folder, and I need to go back to the main folder. And so now I'm here, right? All right, and now all I have to do is when I'm in my home folder is to write live server. So again, I can call this on the command line because it's a global package. And let's see what happens now. And here we go. Like magic, it opened the Google Chrome browser because it's my default browser, and it opened the project. So that's amazing, right? And you actually see that's now on this local host. So this 172.0.0.1 is actually a local host. And then this one here is the port. So it's on port 8080. And you could actually change this one here in the definitions of live server. But for now, we don't want to do any of that. All we want is for this to work. And we're not worried about this port number here at all. It doesn't matter. And so now this is actually a real HTTP server. So I was saying right in the beginning, as we first opened this page here, that we were later going to do it on a real HTTP server. And that's what we're doing here. So now it's not longer the file protocol as we have here, but it's now an HTTP protocol. Okay, and now let's actually change something. And just like before with the SASS code here, you have to keep this one running here as well. So now it says ready for changes, and you have to keep this one running. So again, if you now want to type some more code, you have to open even another tab by hitting Command T. And on Windows, you have to open another window. So now we have actually two things here running in the background. So it keeps compiling our SASS file, and it keeps waiting for changes and then reloading that page as soon as it detects the change. So let's now change something here in this one here. For example, let's change the color white simply to red. So we save it, and now we see that probably here it did this rendering complete, and then here change detected, and so let's see what's happening. Whoa, and here it is. So what was white before is now red, and we didn't have to click the reload button. All we had to do was to change the code and come here, and everything updated for us very nicely. And you also saw the power of this changing the code in one simple place, and a lot of stuff happens in the background. So I change it back to white, and when I go here, it's white. No need to reload. And that's actually all I had to show you for this lecture. We now have our development environment nicely set up. We can maybe later add some stuff to it, like the compression or the prefixing stuff that I was telling you about in the previous lecture, I think. But for now, everything's working just fine, and we're ready to move on to the next section and really start working on our project and to build all these exciting sections that I have for you here in this webpage. So in the next section, that's what we're going to do. We're going to build all of this. So I hope you're excited for that, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.